Without a computer in his cell, Albert Gonzalez is awaiting trial on allegations he orchestrated the largest data breach in history.
NASA's under attack.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are hacked. You are hacked.
You are hacked.
It's July 2005, a chilly night in summer. A 24-year-old Cuban man named Albert sits alone in his Miami condo, his fingers dancing over his laptop keyboard. He's not browsing the web or playing games. He's finalizing a plan that will change everything. By day, he's a government informant, helping the U.S. Secret Service take down cybercriminals. But by night, he becomes the very thing he's supposed to fight against: a hacker. He wasn't planning just any heist. His target was the heart of the American financial system. Over the next few months, he will breach the defenses of some of the nation's largest corporations, stealing the credit card information of over 170 million American customers. What he's about to do will send shockwaves through the financial world, making him one of the most wanted criminals in history. This is the story of Albert Gonzalez. Albert was born in 1981. He spent his initial years in a small town in Cuba and then later moved to the U.S., where he attended South Miami High School. Other kids his age could be seen playing volleyball on the beach or heading into the waters with the surfboard. But none of this caught Gonzalez's attention. His love was for something completely different: computers. His hobby started off as setting up computers for his friends and relatives in his Miami neighborhood. Albert was a troubled pack leader of computer nerds who spent their after-school hours in front of a computer screen, learning about the technology. Seeing his unusual interest in the tech world, his parents bought Albert his first computer at the age of 12. They thought that he would use the computer for his schoolwork and play video games, to keep himself busy with a gadget that he had loved from a very young age. As soon as Albert Gonzalez got his personal computer, he did spend his days and nights looking at its screen, but not to play video games or watch movies. Rather, he was exploring a world only few knew about at the time and fewer dared to explore: hacking. So, where did Albert Gonzalez's hacking career start? The first nickname that Albert Gonzalez ever used was Soup Nazi, inspired by the sitcom Seinfeld's restaurateur. When Albert was 14, 2 years after he got his first computer, he managed to get into the servers of NASA. When the NASA IT department detected the hack, they immediately alerted law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. Everyone aware of the situation initially guessed the hacker might be operating from a foreign land, trying to compromise the national security of the United States. However, upon tracing the hacking activity, it was discovered that NASA's system wasn't breached by an enemy state or an international hacker organization. Rather, a 12-year-old kid did it from his personal computer while sitting in his modest Miami home. When the FBI paid Albert Gonzalez a visit to his high school, everyone was shocked to know that a kid who didn't fit in could be this genius. A normal kid would have gotten scared and might have dumped his hobby of computers and hacking forever. But Albert Gonzalez wasn't a normal kid. That's why he kept working on his hacking skills without worrying about the legal troubles that his activities may land him in one day. But what was the turning point in Gonzalez's life that transformed him from a usual kid to a skillful hacker involved in a multi-million-dollar fraud? Albert Gonzalez was still in high school when he discovered IRC, a network where internet users could talk to each other in real time. Albert would join chat rooms with hackers and spend hours discussing things like how to hack the internet security of different organizations. He was spending both his days and nights learning advanced hacking skills and sharing his knowledge with other hackers who were interested in similar topics. Albert had always been an alpha male who gave instructions to everyone in the group when it came to hacking. He graduated from South Miami High School in 1999, and the first thing he did after graduation was visit one of his friends from the IRC chat rooms, Stephen Watts. They spent days discussing and experimenting with different computer programming and hacking skills. Both Gonzalez and Watts were unaware that they would later become partners in crime and steal more than 170 million credit cards. After graduating high school, Albert Gonzalez applied to different institutes and eventually enrolled in Miami College. While the rest of his batchmates were exploring the new college life, Albert Gonzalez had his focus on just one thing: hacking. He didn't waste any time partying with his classmates, going out to the movies, or hanging out on the beach during the weekends. Instead, he went straight to the bookstore and bought some advanced-level software manuals. These manuals talked about how to hack into internet service providers and get free broadband internet. Albert taught himself the skill and started getting free internet without this coming to anyone's notice. But just a few months into the activity, he realized he could do much more with his hacking knowledge than just get free broadband. That is where Albert Gonzalez started learning how big companies and their digital system worked. The seeds of the malicious activities he would commit in the future had now taken root. Although Albert had enrolled in the subjects of his choice at college, it didn't take him too long to realize that what was taught in classes was what he had already learned about as a kid. Programming languages, coding, and basic computing terms. Gonzalez already knew everything. Bored by the entry-level computer courses at college that didn't offer any new and exciting knowledge, Albert Gonzalez decided to quit college. He dropped out of Miami College just a few weeks after enrollment. The next important decision that Albert had to make was about his plans for the future. He knew that a person of his expertise might not be able to find good opportunities in Miami, so he decided to move out of not just the city, but the state. Albert's next destination was New York City. It was simple for him. He could polish his hacking and other computer skills better in the city that never slept, like Gonzalez. Soon after moving to New York, he landed a job in a .com firm. But the luck didn't last long, and the firm soon shut down its operations. Albert now wanted to work at a bigger company, and his wish was to be fulfilled, given that he was soon employed at a tech firm called Siemens. But his second job also didn't last long, and he was forced to leave the company after it decided to move out of New York. The year was 2002. Albert kept going on his savings for some time while looking for a new job, but wasn't able to find one that would interest him. The money he had for a rainy day was running out, and he knew he quickly needed to find a stable source of income. Otherwise, he might end up on the streets. That is when Albert Gonzalez decided to enter the world of hacking full-time. With years of experience in hacking internet services, Albert decided to join Shadow Crew, a platform for hackers and cybercriminals to exchange services that includes selling and buying of social security cards, credit card numbers, and other information that could help carry out different kinds of computer crimes. Albert Gonzalez wasn't a usual hacker, and everyone in the Shadow Crew knew that after interacting with him and learning about what he could do with his computing and hacking knowledge. This is why, soon after joining the cybercrime forum, Gonzalez became one of its leaders. He continued to rise through the ranks in Shadow Crew and soon started enjoying the fruit of his hacking knowledge. He became the moderator of the Shadow Crew forum and began earning money through phony credit cards. Just a few months after joining Shadow Crew in 2003, Gonzalez was arrested while withdrawing cash from an ATM using multiple phony credit cards. He didn't know that an undercover NYPD officer was carefully watching him and his illegal activity. Once confirmed that Albert was using fake credit cards, law enforcement officials arrested him. The authorities thought Albert Gonzalez was a lone hacker who was using his hacking knowledge to earn easy cash. But as the investigation began, everyone knew that the guy they had in custody wasn't just a cashier. Rather, he was the moderator of the infamous Shadow Crew forum. This revelation is a normal investigation into a special case, and the government officials started interrogating him more carefully to get as many details about Shadow Crew as possible. Albert was threatened with a big sentence for the illegal activities he had been involved in the past few years. Being a sharp and intelligent person, he knew he couldn't let the government end his hacking career just yet. So, he made an offer that was a win-win situation for both parties. Albert agreed that if the government didn't initiate criminal prosecution against him, he would become an informant for law enforcement agencies and help them trace and catch cybercriminals and cybercrime rings. The government agreed, and he was recruited as an informant for Operation Firewall, a federal cybercrime task force that investigates illegal online activities. While the government agencies thought they had found themselves a skilled person to catch other cybercriminals like him, Albert Gonzalez was playing the agencies. The authorities believed Gonzalez had agreed to help the government because he wanted to avoid prosecution. But something else was on his mind. He wanted to know how the cybercrime task forces worked and how much knowledge the government agents had about different cybercrimes. So, he was helping the government, but also studying the agents and their understanding of computers and their impact on cybercrime. His criminal mind was constantly working, and his work for the government only encouraged him to keep thinking about newer ways to bypass government scrutiny. He didn't waste any time in befriending the government agents for his personal gains. Albert was clear from the very start where his loyalties lay. He pretended to have a close bond with the agents, but was always more loyal to his hacking community. He even talked about it in a statement later. "This distinction is very important. My loyalty has always been to the Black Hat community." To make sure no one knew about his real intentions, Albert did help the government catch other cybercriminals. In 2004, because of his tips, the government was able to arrest dozens of members of the Shadow Crew Forum. After the arrests, Shadow Crew knew someone in the organization's ranks was leaking information to the authorities. The fingers could easily be pointed at Albert because of all of the Shadow Crew members. Albert was the only leader that didn't get prosecuted by the law enforcement agencies. The government agencies feared Albert could be harmed by the Shadow Crew members. Therefore, he was asked to move back to his hometown, Miami. Albert returned to Miami in late 2004 and decided to pursue his hacking career there. Gonzalez started exploring the mechanisms of corporate wireless networks and how they could be exploited by hacking. When the internet became the talk of the town in the late 1990s, every company rushed to get online without paying considerable attention to data security. Similarly, as Wi-Fi became popular in the early 2000s, firms tried to quickly adopt the new technology without taking the necessary security measures. Albert was aware of these loopholes in digital security and knew that exploiting these vulnerabilities could make him rich quickly. A technique known as war driving specifically intrigued Albert Gonzalez. In this cybercriminal technique, hackers sat in a van or a car parked in the parking lot of a store. These hackers had their laptops and high-powered radio antenna with them. They then used the antenna to catch the store's Wi-Fi signals and dig through the network in search of possible vulnerabilities. And if someone was as skillful as Albert Gonzalez, they could easily get their hands on the billion-dollar business server of the company within minutes. Albert knew he could make easy and big money through war driving, but he needed a team to start his hacking business. And that's how the Get Rich or Die Trying crew started. It was Albert's hacking organization to steal people's credit card data and use it for financial gains. Little did anyone know that this ambitious group would end up stealing more than 170 million credit cards in a few years. The name of the group was inspired by the 50 Cent album that had been released more than a year ago. As for the members of this group, Albert needed people he could trust. So he chose Stephen Watts and his old friend and hack buddy from IRC chat rooms, Christopher Scott, who was willing to do the hard yards required in their hacking business. In the coming months, Scott managed to get hold of more than 400,000 card accounts from DSW and BJ's Wholesale Club by putting the war driving technique to work. After stealing the card information, he would pass it to Albert, who used them to withdraw cash. While running the Get Rich or Die Trying crew, Albert Gonzalez was also working for the government agencies in Miami. In early 2006, he helped the Secret Service in an investigation that became a paid informant in its Miami office. He wasn't earning much from his government job, but his lifestyle was that of an extremely rich businessman. Every day, Albert would buy new cars and condos. There wasn't a luxury hotel suite in Miami that he hadn't stayed in. He would go to super expensive restaurants and clubs and spend thousands of dollars in the blink of an eye. Once, Albert threw a birthday party for himself that cost over $75,000. He rented Sky Studios' penthouse duplex that had a rooftop pool and offered a soaring Manhattan view. Albert loved DJ Oscar G and Ralph Falcon, but they both lived in Miami. He flew them to New York just to play at his birthday party. He didn't want to enjoy his lavish lifestyle alone, but also wanted his friends to experience it too. In 2005, he and his friends made their first trip to the Winter Music Conference in South Beach. They went to different Miami clubs, but were annoyed by how things worked there. Bouncers with attitudes, waiting in line for drinks, sneaking into the bathroom to do drugs. They believed their standard was much higher than that. So, the following year, when they went back to South Beach, they partied on their own terms. The friends booked a top-of-the-line suite at the Lowe's and stayed in it all weekend while enjoying their magic milkshakes at frequent intervals. This milkshake was magic for anyone with a drug addiction. It was an insane blend of cookies and cream Haagen-Dazs, skim milk, ecstasy, mushrooms, and LSD. It was the ultimate drug experience for Albert Gonzalez and his friends, who had long left the boring world of weed and were looking to try something new and more intense. As Albert's Operation Get Rich continued, he started taking frequent trips to New York to his partner in crime, Stephen Watts. Watts had a day job at Morgan Stanley, where he worked in the IT department. At night, he concentrated all his energies on his crime business of selling stolen card information. As for Christopher Scott, Albert and him were doing something that would keep them away from the radar of the authorities. Albert knew which hackers were under investigation by the Secret Service. He was setting them up with Scott's help. They would sell them databases of stolen information from companies of whom breaches were being investigated. As a result, the Secret Service would trace their activities and catch them. The war-driving technique was boring Albert Gonzalez now, and he was looking for something that could challenge him intellectually. He had also gotten tired of his job with the government. That's when he began exploring a new technique called SQL injection. SQL is a programming language that allows commercial websites to exchange data with each other. A hacker having experience in SQL could penetrate any company at any time. Since Albert didn't like being in the parking lots of stores, he liked the SQL injection technique because now he could hack companies from anywhere in the world. This allowed the hackers to intercept payment data and then make their way into the corporate servers of the parent company. By this time, Albert had recruited a new member to his group, Patrick Toey, a hacker friend who was facing financial problems. Patrick and Stephen wrote the code, chaining 20 encrypted IP address proxies to hide their new location. Albert and Patrick then reviewed the Fortune 500 companies to find the ones that the Get Rich or Die Trying crew could successfully attack. Before hacking any company, they gathered all the necessary information about it, such as the computer systems and technology being used by the firm. The group then hacked into the corporate databases through the company's website and used malware to download the credit card data of its customers. Their activity used to be so well timed that they stole all of the required information before the company's systems could detect any unusual event. As soon as the credit card information was stolen, they removed their digital footprint and installed invisible backdoors for future access to the system. When 2007 ended, Albert Gonzalez and his crew members had breached over 50 million credit card accounts by hacking companies such as Target, TJX, OfficeMax, and Barnes & Noble. But that was just the beginning, because the group would go on and steal 120 million more credit cards soon. What was even more shocking was that the data wasn't protected at all in several cases and was simply there for the taking. Albert was a big game player now. So, he went on to make an international cartel with the help of Maxim Yastremski, a Ukrainian, to sell credit card accounts across Asia, Europe, and America. 2 European hackers also joined him soon to break into American card payment processors. At this point, Gonzalez's operation had grown so much that he was running one of the biggest hacking organizations in the world. In the spring of 2008, Albert and Toei were coming back from a recon mission in Miami when a sports car started chasing them. There were Secret Service agents in the car. Both the hackers grew suspicious and managed to escape the agents and drive straight to Albert's condo. But the get-rich-or-die-trying crew couldn't escape the authorities for long. A few weeks after this incident, in May 2008, Albert Gonzalez and Stephen Watts were arrested at an ultra-luxury hotel in Miami. The agents who arrested the hackers also found a pistol, 2 laptops, and $25,000 in cash from the suite. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Upon interrogation, Albert Gonzalez revealed that he had buried a barrel with $1 million in cash in the backyard of his parents' house. Albert might not have come under the radar of law enforcement agencies had it not been for his partner in crime from Ukraine, Maxim Yastremski. Maxim was apprehended in July 2007, and when the authorities examined his laptop, they discovered he had millions of stolen card numbers. Upon further investigation, it was revealed that Maxim had been in touch with another hacker. Once the chat stored on his hard drive was decrypted, the other hacker turned out to be Albert Gonzalez, which led to the arrest of the get-rich-or-die-trying leader in the United States. Patrick Tuohy was also arrested soon after, and he gave crucial information about Albert's operations in exchange for a reduced sentence. It was only after decrypting data on Albert's computers that the federal agents realized the scale of illegal operations their trusted informant was running behind their backs. 11 members of the get-rich-or-die-trying crew were indicted by the government for costing different corporate companies more than $200 million. However, this was just a safe guess, since the true vastness of Albert's activities couldn't be quantified. Stephen Watts pleaded guilty and did admit to writing the code for Albert's hacking empire, but continues to insist that he was unaware his code was being used for illegal financial activities. He also told the authorities that he never made any money from Albert's crimes. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay a share of $180 million in damages. When Albert's turn came, he said he regretted his crimes and did so to help out a friend and hacker who had family and financial problems, Patrick Tuohy, who helped him break into the corporate networks. In his official statement, Albert said, he never thought about the impact of his actions on the millions of people affected, and he was deeply sorry for his actions and the consequences of his illegal activities. Patrick Tuohy had already turned against Albert and received a sentence of 5 years, despite facing a maximum of 22 for cooperating with the authorities. When this came to Albert's knowledge, he knew that there was no escaping the law this time, and lying about his hacking operations would only make things worse for him legally. So, he pleaded guilty to the charges and fully cooperated with the government agencies by sharing every detail about how he managed to hack a huge number of credit card numbers from big companies. In addition to that, Albert Gonzalez's attorney also submitted a report from a psychiatrist that stated that Gonzalez's actions were, quote, consistent with the description of the Asperger's disorder and internet addiction. Although he was facing life imprisonment for financial crimes he had committed, Albert Gonzalez avoided the maximum sentence because of his cooperation with the authorities. On March 25, 2010, Gonzalez was sentenced to 20 years in prison for hacking the systems of different companies and stealing information from more than 170 million credit cards. The next day, U.S. District Court Judge Douglas P. Woodlock handed the hacker another 20 years for hacking into Heartland Payment Systems, a U.S.-based payment processing and technology provider. Albert Gonzalez was also ordered to forfeit more than $1.65 million, a condo in Miami, a Glock 27 firearm, IBM and Toshiba laptop computers, a blue 2006 BMW 330i automobile, a Nokia cell phone, a Tiffany diamond ring, and 3 Rolex watches. Gonzalez is serving his prison term at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington and is expected to be released in 2025 based on time served and good behavior. But his story of stealing over 170 million credit cards still shocks anyone who hears it because it's considered one of the biggest financial crimes ever.